Hey everyone. We're gonna get started. Parents, there's plenty of room in here if you do want to come in. If you want to sit out there, that's fine. Appreciate everyone coming. It's really a good addition that we made to the program. And I'm talking to the kids now. Like, this is stuff that I played professionally. No one ever went over this stuff with me, ever. I had to figure it out when I was playing. So the mental side of not only baseball, but everything you do, your mindset sometimes determines what the outcome's gonna be. So I'm gonna introduce to you, we're gonna have 8 series. My good friend Jeff Camire, some of you know him as a counselor at TA, has a master's, has multiple masters, and he recently, over the past 3 or 4 years, did some more work on the mental side of sports. He's a golf coach. He's been a coach for a very long time, been in the school system for a very long time. And I'm happy to have him. And I just want to make sure this is not going to be long. It's going to be about 45 minutes to an hour. So every kid in here, I want you paying attention, right? Just listen to him, try to absorb some things, and let's have fun with it, okay? So introduce to you Jeff Camire.
All right, thanks guys. So I'm really happy to be here. As Jason said, I'm a school counselor at Ford Academy, and I've been there. This is my 22nd year. Before that, I was an athletic trainer, and so I did my undergraduate in athletic training. Did that for about 6 years, and while I was athletic training, I really wanted to get that. I had that itch to coach. I wanted to get into, because I'd been an athlete growing up, and I just wanted to get back into that area, but I couldn't do that as an athletic trainer. So eventually I found my way to school counseling, so I've been doing that, and that allowed me to get into coaching. And I started, first coaching job I had was a JV baseball coach at TA for 6 years, and then what ended up happening is family life started, and as my kids got older, I started to get into coaching when they were little. So a lot of you guys have had your dads coaching and things like that. I started with Little League, went all the way through, did the whole All-Star thing, and then Jason, at one point, as that was happening, called me and said, hey, we got this River Rats program going. I need a 9-year-old coach. And I said, nope, I'm good. And he kept coming back at me, come on, my youngest son was going to be an 8-year-old. And that, at the time, Little League had changed the rules as far as the age. So he was going to have to play not as a 9-year-old level as an 8-year-old. So he said, why don't you do that? That'll help him. So I said, all right. So he broke me down. And so I was part of this program for 5 years. And we had some really high-level players. We had a lot of success. I was fortunate to I had some great coaches with me. We won the 9-year-old level the first 2 years. I did that 2 years, and we won the EBL as 10-year-old level. Then at 11-year-olds, we lost in the finals of the EBL championship, and then that last year we lost in the semifinals. So really fortunate, and some of the kids that have come through here, it's really cool to see the progression that happens. But as I've been coaching, one of the things that got stuck out to me as we were going through everything was I would notice that some athletes would be able to perform at a high level, and other athletes who I felt had more talent never seemed to get to that level. So it started to intrigue me, and I really started to look into this a lot more. And because as me as an athlete, I look back at myself, and I kept looking at it and saying, I was an emotional kid, and I got in my own way a lot, okay? And I think some of you sitting here can probably relate to that, right? Are there anybody in here who, when things don't go well, start to kind of get frustrated, and, you might hear from a coach or a parent saying, hey, you know what, you just kind of get out of your own way. Is anybody in here that's ever heard that, or felt that, or, okay? Probably more than raising their hands. All right, so this is something that is really, I'm very passionate about, because I think the mental side of sports, and as Jason said, it's not just about sports. What I like to teach relates to anything. So it doesn't matter if, you can take all these skills that, when I work with people individually, where we're working on skills that we can then translate into things in life. Because ultimately, if you know how to focus on the right things, you're going to be successful in whatever you want to do. So that's going to be the goals that we have for tonight, but also Jason's going to have me back here for eight sessions, and we're going to talk tonight about just establishing an elite mindset, because that's the foundation of everything that you need to be able to do. And from that, we're going to work on things. So we'll probably have people bringing things to write on as we move forward, okay? Because I think it's important that you take some notes. For those of you that aren't used to doing that in school, you may want to learn that. But we're going to, because I want you to, there's going to be things I want you to be able to write down and you can reflect on and then build on that. Because everything that we do is about self-awareness. So I want you, when you're done listening to me all this time, I want you to be able to apply it to stuff you do in practice, but also it's going to help you become more aware of yourself. And that is the only way you can improve. Because if you're not aware of something, you can't change it. Okay? And it's not that there's anything wrong with you because you're doing things a certain way. It's just that if you want to be an elite player, like how many of you want to play, how many want to play college baseball? Okay? How many of you are not in high school yet? Just raise your hands. Okay? So how many of you guys want to start on your varsity team someday? Okay? So when you as we start to move up the ladder in a competition, okay? And for those of you that are in high school and want to play in college, it doesn't get easier as you go up, okay? And the difference and what separates the best players from the average players is the mindset, okay? 100%, all right? You can have all the talent in the world, and there are plenty of stories of people that have all this talent, but they weren't able to achieve at that next level, or it gets to that level and they don't have the skills to be able to deal with the adversity that comes. Okay, when adversity is just when things aren't going well, how do you respond to it? All right, so that's what I want you to understand, and that's what I want to help build as we go. So, the mental game, and I say this, some of you I know have heard me talk before and done this, but how much of the game of baseball do you feel is mental? Just throw out some numbers. What percentage of baseball do you think is mental? 75. Anybody? 60? 90? Okay. We can't get to 100, so we won't do that. But let's just say we're between 75 and 80% is probably generally where we usually fall, right? So knowing that, and knowing that you come in here and you take all your reps in the cages, throwing balls all the time, doing your arm stuff, getting on work off the mound, getting your infield, taking your infield work, fly balls, all that stuff. Okay? How much of the time that you spend practicing do you dedicate to the mental side of the game? Okay? How much? 0 probably, right? So it's certainly not 75 to 80%. So if we can just help you increase that a little bit, or get it to 40, 50%, just think of the improvement you can make just with continuing to do what you're doing now. Okay, so there is a lot to this, and I think that it's really simple stuff, but hopefully you get a lot out of this tonight, because I enjoy this, it's fun, and again, just like anything else, if I taught you how to, I'll use an example like for basketball. If I taught you a new dribble move tonight, okay, you'd be like, oh, that's pretty cool, I can do that. But if you never work on that move, you're not going to execute it in the game, right? You're not going to be good at it. You can't just look at something and then execute it. You have to practice it. So it's the same thing with the mental game. When we talk about things, if you aren't actively practicing that and applying it in practice, you're not going to use it in the game. I promise you, you won't do it. Okay? I coach athletes now, okay, and I've been coaching golf, which is the most mental game there is, I think. Okay, just finished my 21st year coaching golf at TA, and I coached the girls varsity, the varsity assistant in basketball for 12 years, and now I'm entering my second year with the boys varsity as a varsity assistant. And I can tell you, with these last few years, we are doing things in practice on the mental game. Okay, we're implementing things, because if you don't work at it, you're not going to do it when you need it most. Okay, because when the pressure's on, we default to our habits. Okay, so we need to build different habits, and that's what we're slowly gonna do. So I know Jason put this out kind of when introducing. There's 10 pillars that we're gonna work off of. We're not gonna cover all this tonight because we'd be here a long time. We're gonna focus on number one, elite mindset, but the others are motivation and commitment, focus and awareness, self-control and discipline, process over outcome. You probably heard that a lot. Trust the process, all these things. Elite mindset is going to help establish that. Mental imagery and meditation, routines and habits of excellence, time management and organization. And then the last two are more about kind of what you can bring to your teams, okay? Leadership and the right culture. Because I know this, and if anyone's been on good teams before, if you don't have the right culture, you can have the best team in the world, but if your culture's not right, you're not going to win. Okay, and any team that's won, and I think back to the teams that I remember, just even the little guys, right? When we were winning with the River Rats, we had great culture, and part of the reason was is that we, as coaches, never talked about winning games. Okay, we didn't talk about that. We focused on doing all the right things in practice, supporting each other, all those things, and that team was tight. Okay, and I could. Quick story about that. I remember we lost, it was double elimination, and we had lost a game, kind of a surprise. And back then at the lower level, you can hit continuous lineup. And you know, you think in playoffs you change it up. You're like, oh, I want to put my best lineup in there. And so we were walking back to the coaches, and I just said, we were going to walk to the team, and I said to them, you know what? We're hitting everybody the rest of the way. I go, we've done this the whole year. We're going to do that. So we talked to the team, and they're afraid because we're a really good team. We're expected to lose, and I told them we're good. And then I said tomorrow we're coming back, and I said I don't care what happens tomorrow, but we're hitting everybody, and if we win, we win. If we lose, we lose. And they started cheering like we just won the national championship, so loud that the team that beat us looked over and were like, what the heck's going on over there? And then we ended up going through and winning, won that weekend, and then we followed up with the championship the following week. But it was the culture, and because those kids just play for each other, and that's what you need to be a good. So when we're doing this stuff, being a good teammate is just as important as being a good athlete. Okay, you've got to be able to support each other. All right, so process. All right, you've heard this all the time. Okay, trust the process. Trust the process. So I can tell you right now, the process. Your process is working perfectly for the results you're getting right now. Okay, so wherever you're at right now, your process got you here. Okay, the only way, if you want to improve yourself, you need to change your process, what you're doing. So when we talk about this, it's about what you do every day. It's not just about what you do in the cage when you show up here. Okay, it's about the daily progress. And we'll get into some things later on to talk a little bit more about that, okay? But again, it's literally about the steps you take. So think about a staircase, all right? So every day, if every day is a step in your process, are you moving up that staircase? Are you standing still, or are you going backwards? All right? And that's how you have to approach it. Because if you want to win something, or you want to be, let's say I want to go to the gym and I want to get big, or I want to get strong. If I go to the gym on Monday and I bang out a bunch of reps and I'm doing all this thing, on Tuesday, am I going to be a lot stronger? Probably not, right? But if I go in the gym consistently, and every day I work at improving, in a month from now, or 2 months from now, I'm going to be a lot stronger. Okay? Some of you can probably look back and see that as far as you think back to where you are now compared to where you were maybe 2 years ago. Part of that right now, the trick is this is the one thing you have to remember. As you get older, you get stronger, you get faster. Okay, so you just normally improve. But the good ones, the great ones, don't just rely on their natural growth. Because some of us grow at different rates. Okay? I'm going to tell you a story about one kid that came through this program, that played a TA, who, if there's anybody that you talk about following the trust in the process, is Henry Lozier. I don't know if anyone knows who that is, but he played on the state championship team. He played on my very first Rats team. Okay, he was this little chubby kid, and his dad was coaching us. I knew him, but wasn't fast. He was kept playing catcher, he kind of, whatever, he pitched a little bit. He's an okay player. The next year, he moved up, and I stayed with the 9-year-olds. He went and he played for the 10 red team, okay? But every day, every week, he would come into this facility, and he would hit balls with his dad. I've never seen anything like it. So he did that through Little League, okay, and every time he just kind of stayed on the red team, didn't, the black team where everyone wants to be, and, he's going to be at the top level, and Henry kept just doing his thing. All of a sudden, he gets a little bigger, we get to Little League, now he's playing with some of the black Rats players. Get to the 12-year-old year, he hits a grand slam to win the state championship, and they go into Bristol. Same thing, then you fast forward through to high school, he goes through, now Henry was not a kid that I would say is an outstanding natural athlete, but he tapped into every single ounce of his talent because he showed up every day. He was consistent. So as a player, your goal is to try to be as consistent as possible. Because if you are consistent, your coach is going to notice and you're going to play. Okay? Now, we're going to get into, we don't control some of those things, but consistency is the key. It doesn't matter, like I coach golf, right? They're like, well, coach, I can hit my 7-iron 180 yards. Okay? I'm like, that's great, but you can't do that every time, right? So, most of the time you're hitting a 145. So it doesn't matter what your top level is. It might mean where you're capable of being, but it doesn't mean we want to know what can I count on as a coach? What do I know you're going to be able to produce for me when you're up there? So that's what this is all about. Okay, so you got to be able to trust what you do every day to prepare yourself. Okay, so what's an elite mindset? Why is it important? It is the key that unlocks performance. Okay, 100%. Okay, as I said before. Do you get frustrated when things don't go well? Do you get stuck? Okay, we've said that. Some of you have done that. That happens to us. Okay, if you don't know what to do, you're just going to be waiting for your results to change. When we get frustrated and stuck, we don't know what to do, so we just get frustrated, we get mad, and the only thing that changes it is if we happen to have a good day at the plate or on the mound or in the field, whatever it is. Okay, but what I'm going to get you to think about is thinking about things that don't have to do with results, because that's the only way you're going to be able to get past that. Okay, how many of you, either yourself or you know someone that's unbelievable in practice, but then they get to the games and it doesn't happen? Okay, anyone know anyone, or has that happened to any of you? Okay, all right. So a lot of times what it is when you judge yourself, or when you're kind of evaluating yourself, it's because we get so locked in on our results. Okay, how many hits you get, how many strikeouts did I have on the mound, that kind of thing. Okay, and this is the big one, adversity. Okay, how do you view adversity? So when things are going bad for you, okay, do you view it as an end in the road, or do you view it as a bend in the road? Okay, because I can tell you this, as an athlete, especially as you get going, adversity is coming. Okay, so you know it's coming. So how are you going to handle it? Because I tell our anytime we play, but let's just use golf for instance. Before every match, I say to my players, something's going to go wrong today. I'm not trying to be negative, I'm trying to be a realist. Okay, something's going to go wrong today. How are you going to respond to it? You got to be ready and prepare that way. So a lot of you can understand, baseball is a game of failure. You've probably heard this many times, but I just saw something on Twitter where it said it was Manny Ramirez, and saying, would you put him in the Hall of Fame? And he was like a 312 lifetime average, and I don't know, 500 something home runs. And someone had posted below that only, I think, 8 or 9 people in the history of baseball have had a 300 career average and over 500 home runs. So he's probably getting it, okay? But that's 312, okay? So think about that. He had a lot of failure as a hitter. So I know now at the younger levels, those averages tend to be a little bit higher because you're not facing the pitching and all those things as much as you will as you get up here. But think about your little league averages compared to your high school averages, and then when you get to college, those things start to go down because the competition gets tougher. And as Jason said, at the highest levels, they are talking mental game all over the place. So for you to have a foundation in this as a young athlete is something that we didn't have. And I know if you can take a little bit from this, it's going to help you. It will definitely help you, okay? All right, so flip the funnel. So if I asked you to pour water into one of these funnels, which one do you think would be the easiest to do? The left or the right? The right, okay? Why is that? Because the opening's bigger, it's easier to pour in, right? So let's think of this as mental performance, okay? So let's just say this, you're a hitter, okay? You're up at the plate and you're getting ready to hit. So now you've got all these things going through your head. So whatever, it could be things you're working on, you could be thinking, okay, the count, the situation, coach gives you the signal, parents are yelling, don't do this, don't that, let's do this, you know, keep your elbow up, keep your eye on the ball, all these things, right? So you're hearing all these things going on, all right? And you're trying to fit it through this little spout right here, okay? So when things are getting tough for you, okay, and you're nervous and you're not like, let's say it's a tough, pressure-filled moment, we have to be aware of how we're interpreting and how we're taking in all this information. If we use this funnel, okay, one, we're gonna have a hard time squeezing all the information into that, and then what kind of performances kind of come out the other end? Pretty bad, right? Almost like a throw up all over the place. It's not gonna be controlled at all. However, if we flip that funnel, okay, and this is something I want you to think about, when things you're starting to feel out of control, you gotta be like, I gotta flip my funnel, okay? So what you gotta do is flip it, allow yourself to take in all that, and then what happens is it becomes more focused, and then your performance is better. Okay, it's more, you have a focused performance, but you have more control over what's happening. And it's just about understanding how to do that. Okay, so an average and elite mindset. So again, one of the rats things, right? What are we allergic to as rats? They even say that anymore? Come on. Allergic to what? Starts with an A. That's right. Allergic to average. Maybe because I was around in the foundation years. Okay, so for an average versus elite mindset. So this is really important to differentiate. So average people say I have to go to practice. The elite mindset says I get to go to practice. Okay, just a little bit of a tweak, right? Like none of you had to come and get to this tonight. You got to come to this tonight. And the fact that you showed up says a lot. Because you didn't have to be here. Okay, this wasn't mandatory. It's just everything you can get. Anytime you can get information, it's a win for you. Okay, average mindsets focus on feelings. Okay, I don't really feel like doing that, or it's just not my day. I'm not feeling it today. Okay, elite mindset focus on action. It doesn't matter how you feel. Okay, you still have to prepare. You have to take action regardless of how we feel, okay? Just think of it this way, and parents might be able, relate to this, but wake up in the morning, some people, let's say if you work out in the morning, okay? A lot of people, nobody jumps out of bed saying, ooh, can't wait to work out today. Most of the time you're like, I don't really feel like working out. But if you make yourself go, all of a sudden you get there and you do it, okay? Have you guys ever had a situation where you didn't want to go somewhere, and you're like, you're just kind of like, I don't want to go there, I don't want to go there, and then you end up going, and then you end up having a great time, and you're like, I'm really glad I did that. It's because just by taking that action, you were able to change your emotions, okay? And so you got to understand that we control a lot more of this than we think, all right? Average mindset sees failure as final, okay? Just like, well, it's going to be one of those days. Let's say you have a bad warm-up. Well, it's going to be one of those days I'm not going to play well, okay? Elite mindsets see failure as feedback. There's a great video of Kobe Bryant. I don't know if you've seen that, but it says, the person interviewing him says, what do you feel about failure? And how do you feel about it? He says, he goes, it's exciting. And the interviewer says, well, why do you say that? And he said, because there's facts there, this thing it's a problem to solve. He goes, so it's not just for him. He goes, he tries to learn when he wins, or he did, tried to when he won, and then also when he lost. So it wasn't about, for him, it wasn't about the results, it was about that process of just trying to get better all the time. And that's how you have to approach everything you do. You never want to feel like you've arrived. You want to keep getting better, okay? Average mindset, blame others, okay? They make excuses. And I'm telling you, you see this everywhere. So if you're someone that does that, just understand you're behaving at an elite mindset level when you're making excuses, okay? Own the response. If you make a mistake, just own it. If you didn't play well, you didn't play well. Okay, we can't control that stuff, okay? But we have to understand that what we control and what we don't, but we have to own that response. Okay, you keep blaming people and things just doesn't do you any good. Okay? Average people, average mindset, wear their emotions. Okay? How many times you see something happen and you just see the shoulders go down or like this or throwing something, okay? I know there are people in here that do that, okay, that have done that. We've all done that, okay? It's part of growing up and trying to be a competitor. But we want to make sure we want to be elite and control that, and we're going to talk about what we can control, okay? And I know, like I said, some of you have seen this before, but it's really important. The more you see something like this, the more it's going to become ingrained in you, okay? So remember this, life is not a talent game, life is a strategy game. It's not a talent game, it's a strategy game. We don't rise to the occasion, we sink to the level of our training. So how you prepare when we're talking about habits, okay? Again, if you're not practicing at a certain level and demanding that of yourself, okay? If you're not doing that, then when the pressure's on, you're gonna default right to your habits. Okay, and you look at some of the best teams that you've ever seen as far as on TV or the teams you've been with, and you're always like, how does that team always seem to come up with the right play or something always goes their way? I guarantee you that the habits they have in preparing for the games in practice every day, and those athletes are disciplined to do that, that's why it happens, okay? Because what ends up happening is they know what to focus on, and the teams that always fall apart, it's because they're focused on the wrong stuff. And you know, just as much as I hate to say this, but I'm not a Patriots fan, and as the Patriots went through their long run of endless wins, it seemed like the teams always seemed to mess up and give the Patriots the win, like every week. And as a Chicago Bears fan, with not much to cheer about for a long time, I'm just like, here we go again. But again, you talk about, you know, Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, you talk about people that follow a process, there's a reason they were so successful, okay? So you sink to the level of your training, always remember that, okay? So how are we gonna do this? Oh, shoot, where's that? Sorry. So, how are we going to do this? So we want to make sure we're focusing on the right things. So, I'm going to use a little demonstration. I think some of you may have seen this. So, if you haven't seen this, I don't want you to come up. But I need one volunteer. Really easy. This isn't going to be anything big. Come on, Ben. Okay. So what I want you to do, all I want you to do is you bounce the bat, you know, on your figure before. Okay, so I just want you to bounce this bat, and I'll just count to about 10. I just want you guys okay, ready to go. Good. Nothing's going too much. Good. Okay, good. Stop. Okay, so now this time, we're going to do that again. This time when you do that, I want you to focus on the bottom of the bat, okay? Just do that again, right? Nope. Good, okay, good, that's it. All right, give him 2 claps here. All right, good. So, simple demonstration, okay? But what it shows you, okay, is when we're focusing on the wrong things, we can still perform, but when we talk about focusing on things we can control versus things we can't control. When Ben did it the first time, where was his gaze? Did you guys see where his eyes were? Top of the bat, okay? So when we shifted that to the bottom, that would be equivalent to focusing on things we can't control. So yeah, he could do it, But was it as controlled and was it as consistent? No. Okay, so that's that's just a good demonstration of why it's important to focus on the things that we can control. Okay, so with an elite mindset, okay, we have to make sure that we have a growth mindset. Does anyone know what a growth mindset is? Okay. And let's see, what else? That's good, yep. Okay, future, okay. So when we talk about adversity, when I said that you view it as an end in the road or a bend in the road, okay? A growth mindset, if something goes wrong, is going to be like, I'm okay, all right, or I'm going to learn from this. We'll I'll be able to get better from this. A fixed mindset is going to be it's going to be negative, and that's it. I'm terrible. It's never going to get better. Those kinds of things. So we want to make sure we understand that we always want to be in a learning mode. So again, great little way to remember this is sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. Okay, not sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. So we have to have that mindset, that growth mindset, that things can always get better. Okay, and we want to always try to improve ourselves. Now, this equation right here, some of you may have seen this before. Urban Meyer put this in one of his books called Above the Line. But this is all over the place. But E plus R equals O means event plus response equals outcome. If there's one thing you take from tonight, let it be this. Okay, if there's only one thing you remember, E plus R equals O. So E, the event, that's what happens. That's something that happens to us. Okay, so it could be in any part of life. But let's use baseball, okay? You're at the plate. There's an obvious ball, right? Umpire calls it a strike. Okay? So, the next thing that happens is the response. Okay? So, the R in this equation is the most important thing. So, whatever you choose to do next is going to have a direct impact on that outcome. Okay? So, you get to choose, you have control over 50% of that equation. We can't control what happens. We can't control that call. But we can control how we respond. Okay? And a lot of us don't always remember that, okay? And you know that you can control it, but we don't realize we have that control. So understanding it, that we can control how we respond, is going to directly impact the outcome. Now, we can't control outcomes. So just because I have a good attitude over it, and I'm gonna stay focused, it doesn't mean I'm gonna get a hit. Okay, but if I'm doing that consistently, I'm probably gonna be a much more reliable player. Okay, because if I'm emotional over everything bad that happens to me, guess what? We already talked about baseball is a game of failure. You're going to be unhappy for a long time. Okay, and it's just, again, you're wasting energy of things you can't control. So let's work on controlling that response and how we're going to do. We'll talk about how we're going to do that. Okay, BFS. That stands for body language, focus, and self-talk. This is all about confidence. Okay. I've had people say to me, I really want someone to help me feel more confident. Okay? How many people want to feel more confident? Okay? Well, I got news for you. I can't help you with that because confidence is a choice, it's not a feeling. Okay? So confidence is something that you do. So the way we do that is by controlling our body language. Okay? Body language is a huge one for me as a coach. Okay? Because I cannot stand bad body language, all right? Because it's completely in your control, but we give into it all the time. And coaches are just as bad as athletes, okay? And I'm not perfect, I'm sure that happens to me, but I'm more aware of it. And again, this is what I want you to get from this. You can control your body language. So if you're not feeling confident, then you need to fake it. Just fake it till you make it, kind of thing, okay? Act like, just carry yourself with good body language. All right, we use a term, consider yourself, pretend you're 10 feet tall and bulletproof. Okay, 10 feet tall and bulletproof. You want to make sure that whatever happens, my body language is not going to change. Bad call, good. Okay, I'm good. I'm just going to reset. Okay, if I make an error, okay, yep, I'm going to just reset it, and then we're going to go. Because I can control that. Okay, your focus. We need to understand something. You may have seen this sign. I know it's in some different, I've seen it on TV and things, but W-I-N, what's important now? Okay, what's important now is what you need to focus on. That is right now, be where your feet are. If you focus on things that just happened, or focus on things that haven't happened yet, you're not present and you cannot perform at your best level unless you're doing that. Okay? So understand, it's not easy. Again, this is stuff that you need to do in practice. Okay, you make a mistake in practice, you get mad. Okay, well, you know what? What's next? I gotta get ready for the next rep. I gotta be ready. Instead of dwelling on it or saying, I made 5 errors in practice today. It's over. Okay? Don't worry about that. All right? And then self-talk. Okay? How many of you have ever said something negative to yourself in the course of a game or practice? I'm pretty sure everyone's going to put their hands up. Okay? Because we are incredibly mean to ourselves. Right? We're not nice to ourselves. If I've used this example before, but if I could put a chip in all of your heads, okay, and then you go out and we play a let's say we're in here playing a game and there's a big screen and everything that's going on in your head is projected onto that screen. All right, and I've asked this every time I've done this. How many of you would want that screen to project what you're saying to yourself? Okay, pretty much no one's ever said yes because we're not nice to ourselves. So when things go wrong, what do we say? Oh, you suck, or you're awful, why did you do that? I can't believe it. Here we go again. All right? Understand, those are all things that you can control. So that's things, when we are done, we're going to talk about this in a few weeks, but we're going to have routines on how to do that, how to talk to ourselves. Because positive self-talk or neutral self-talk, one of the two, we just got to stay away from negative. That's important. Okay? We have to make sure, but that's how you do confidence, okay? Your body language, your focus, and your self-talk, okay? The 3 R's. We need to be able to recognize where we are. We're gonna reset, and then we're gonna recognize, we're gonna release what we're feeling, then we're gonna reset. You're all gonna have a routine to do that when by the end of this winter session, okay? That's one of my goals. Okay, and just a couple of little things here. These are things that you can put. I've had athletes do this. ACE, acting changes everything. Okay, so act differently than you feel. If you're not confident, then act it. Okay, if you're mad and you know that's not gonna help you, then act differently. Act differently than you feel. So acting changes everything. Sometimes I just have people write that on a glove or a wristband or something somewhere. Like golfers, you can put that on the golf bag, like on somewhere that they can see, and it just cues them to say, okay, yeah, I gotta let this go, or I gotta act differently than I feel right now, because I want to, throw my club into the water. Okay, but I can't do that if I'm, in a match, or it's not gonna help me. Okay, and then TBT, thoughts become things. What we focus on. Okay, so just remember this: where our focus goes, our energy flows. So if we tend to think negatively, guess what happens? Negative things tend to happen, right? So, did you ever know how many of you know someone that's good things just tend to happen to them all the time? You know anybody like that, right? I'll guarantee that person's pretty positive. They're not just, they're like, oh, they're so lucky. Okay, I have a friend. The guy wins every raffle you can imagine. Like he just sent me a picture the other day. He went to a conference, won a raffle, brand new putter, like $600 putter, and he's won trips. Every time I play with him, he wins something, and he's just this positive guy. It's just so and that doesn't have any reason. That's just the way it is. But he just has a different outlook on life. So just remember that. Okay. So signal lights. This is a foundation of what I teach. Okay. Green, yellow, red light. So we're in a traffic light situation. Green lights. What are we doing when we're in a green light? Some of you have your license, right? Yeah. But some of you don't. Most of us don't have our license here. So you're driving in the car with your parents or whoever. Green light, what are we doing? We're going, right? What about a red light? Stop, okay? How about a yellow light? Slow down. What else? What'd you say? What'd you say? No, you said it. What'd you say? Speed up. Okay, so have you ever been in a car with anyone that kind of sped through the yellow light? Yeah, okay? So, how does this relate to mental performance? So when we're in green light, everything's going good. That's the days that you're feeling like the baseball looks like it's a softball and you're just hitting it wherever it is, or you're pitching and you can hit any spot you want. You're fielding, it just feels great. Everything's good, okay? Yellow light is where things are starting to get out of control a little bit, okay? And again, if you weren't aware of this stuff, you probably never thought of it, okay? But you're starting to lose control, your performance starts to go down. This is the key moment for everyone. Because if you're not aware of this and you don't know how to fix it, guess where you're gonna end up? Red light, okay? And when we're in red light, we're out of control. You're just beating yourself in performance, okay? This is when you start to see the bats fly. You're starting to see, just outbursts, all these things where people just completely lose control, or they get inward and they just melt down and freeze, okay? So some of you just try to think about yourself. Has this ever happened to you? So the key is we want to make sure we understand when we're in which light we're in, because we're going to work on some skills in the future of how to reset ourselves and say, again, where am I? That's the 3 R's. Recognize, so where am I? 2, release. We're going to work on how to release that, and then we're going to reset. That's it, okay? Because again, if we know how to respond to something, we're going to be okay. We're not going to be focusing on our results and our outcomes. Okay, and the same thing when we talked about the BFS, think about your body language in green, yellow, and red light. We're gonna do that probably in the next week. Where I'm gonna give you a worksheet and I want you to write it out for yourself, okay? Because what do you think self-talk looks like when you're in green compared to red? Think about that, okay? Think about how you're talking to yourself when things aren't going well, okay? So we gotta make sure that we understand our signal lights. That's a huge piece. Okay? All right. So what should we focus on, right? What is out of our control? So this is a big one. What's the first one say? Umpires, okay? That goes for players and parents and coaches. We don't control the umpires. If we know that up front, and we know we don't want to focus on things we can't control, we really need to be aware that we're going to get some bad calls, okay? And we might get some good calls. We don't always tend to remember that stuff, but sometimes we'll get the benefit of that. Okay, but let's think of this as athletes. We don't control the umpires. Okay? And just remember, umpires don't hate you or your team or your brother or whoever it is. They don't. They don't care. They just whatever. Okay? So just we think that like, oh, we got this guy, he hates us. Right? You ever heard anyone say that before? Trust me, they don't. They really don't care. They're just there to umpire the game and collect their paycheck. Okay, fans. So as an athlete, you don't control the fans. Either your fans or the opposing fans. We don't control any of that. The media or social media, because nowadays, you guys know, right? Social media before big games, there's some stuff that gets put on there. If you're getting ready for a big game, I would just disengage. Just try to, okay? Because you don't control what's being said out there. All right? You don't control the other team, the opponents, how they act, what they say. Okay, we've all played against other teams and athletes who they're trying to get at you, or they're just saying stuff. Okay, we want to get out of the I hate that team or I hate this team, because if you have to play in the most important game of your life against a team you hate, okay, it may alter kind of how you're going to perform when things. Because what happens with that is we get too wrapped up in the highs and the lows of the game when that happens. So we want to stay level, okay? We don't control playing time, all right? I mean, we all want to play, but it's, again, as you get up higher in level, your playing time isn't going to be guaranteed. Your role might change. You don't control that, okay? Field conditions, weather, it's awful. The field conditions are, terrible. It's raining. We don't control that. We're not even going to worry about it. It's the same for everybody. We don't control our schedule. I'm going to skip down one. We don't control the coaches. But the one right above the coaches is the big one, okay? What is the first, if I ask you, you had a game, okay, and you get home, and let's say, a grandparent or maybe, a parent wasn't at the game, what's the first question they'll ask you? What's that? How'd it go? So what else? What would they say? What's the next question? How many hits you have? Right? Or if you're pitching, What's the next? What would be a good question for? How many strikeouts you have, right? So again, you watch ESPN, right? What do they show on ESPN? They're talking about exit velo. They're talking about all, he's throwing this and that. Every pitcher's throwing 95 and up. All these things, right? We don't control our statistics, and that's a big one. So we don't control if we get a hit. We don't control, the errors. We don't control any of that stuff. And that's a hard one for people to understand, because how will we judge on everything? By statistics. So if you want to get the results that you can't control, you have to go all in on the stuff that you can control. That's another big point here, okay? And before we get to the next thing, we don't control parents, and parents, I know you're here. Our parents love us. They're giving us opportunities. They want us to succeed, okay? But sometimes they can put expectations on us, or you might feel that, but we don't control that. So we gotta just understand, our parents are there, they love us, and all these things, okay? And there's a whole other talk we can do with that stuff. But again, they're trying to get what's best for you guys, all right? We don't control, again, winning and losing, and we don't control the opinions and decisions of other people. So what do we control? Okay, this is something we control. We use the acronym APE, okay? So attitude, okay? Again, confidence is a choice, something that we do. You could go into every practice, every single day of your life, and say, I'm gonna have a good attitude today. That's my goal. I'm gonna have a good attitude, the whole positive attitude, the whole practice. If you do that every day, that's gonna become a habit. And then guess what happens when you get into games? You're gonna stay with that good attitude. Okay, I'm just gonna stay positive. Okay, my body language. I'm gonna have good body language today. I'm not gonna slouch. Just make it a goal. If that's something that you struggle with, make it a goal. I'm gonna try to, for most of the practice today, I'm gonna try to have good body language no matter what happens. Okay? Present moment focus. So what are we focusing on? We gotta stay present. What's important now? That's what you can control what you're focusing on. If you're worried about the 2 errors you just made or the strikeout you just had, you're not staying present. You've got to stay present, okay? And you can focus on that. You can control that, okay? Process and preparation. So we want to talk about focusing on the controllables. And Derek Jeter had a talk, and he was talking about the same thing. He just said, basically, I focus on the things of my preparation, how I prepared for every game. Mentally, just thinking about like he would do his mental reps. It wasn't just about getting in the cages. He'd be scouting, going through how do you scout pitchers and all these things that they do at the professional level. They obviously have more resources than you do at the high school level, but you can do these things. How you prepare for games is in your control. Okay? I mean, like for instance, with us in golf, we're gonna, the kids are gonna go. We're gonna have course maps for the other courses that we play. Now, if they choose not to do that, well, that's on them. But they're gonna have the resources to be able to do that. If we're not able to go over and practice this on our own, or go play that course, get yourself those reps on that course. Baseball, same thing. You can get your reps in the cages. If you're not doing that, then you just have to understand that your performance might not be as consistent as a person that does. Okay? Your perspective, how do you see your situation? So, good, and I'm going to show you a quick video here in a second, but it's one of my favorite videos, but you have to have the mentality that, you know what, when things aren't going well, it's like, good, okay, I'm going to get better. Instead of, oh, this is awful, and just being negative. We got to stay out of that negative. So your perspective, how you see things. Again, we're talking about that person I said that everything good happens to them. They just have a different perspective. So make sure we're focusing on the things we can control. All right? Effort. You want to be relentless. You can control your effort all the time. Baseball's a little different in terms of you have stop and go kind of thing, but in other sports, like basketball, for instance, we want to be relentless when we're on the court. We're coming after you, and we're going to be relentless the whole time. You can control that. Not just when you're playing well, but you got to do that every time. That's going to be who you are. Okay? Again, NDCQ, not dead, can't quit. So just have that mentality. If I'm not dead yet, I'm not quitting. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep coming at you. Okay? I'll quit don't quit. So you don't want to quit when you're tired. Quit when the game's over. Okay? Energy. Bring the juice. This is something that we say this all the time, okay? We want to bring the juice. Energy is contagious. If you want to impact your team, okay? If you want to have a positive impact on your team, be an energy giver, okay? Come in, and it doesn't have to be, you might be a quiet person. It doesn't mean you can't be giving energy in terms of just, hey, great job, fist bump, whatever it is. Hey, something goes wrong on the field, okay? It's all right, we got you, next play. We got that, okay? Cody Bowker, best energy giver I've ever seen as an athlete, okay? He played for TA. I mean, he was unbelievable. And there's a reason why he's in the major, he just got drafted, okay? He was unbelievable. And he controlled the whole game because of his energy, okay? And he fired everybody up. And your emotions, remember, how we feel is not real, okay? So we got to make sure we control that. All right, so I know we're getting here. So this is the video I want to show you from Jocko Willink. It's a couple-minute video, but hopefully I'll bring up the mic here.
Some issue that's going on. And he take my hospital, this and that, and the other thing. And I look at him and said, good. And finally one day he was telling me about some issue that he's having, some problem. And he said, I already know what you're going to say. I said, well, what am I going to say? He said, you're going to say good. He said, that's what you always say. When something is wrong, good and bad, you always just look at me and say good. And I said, well, yeah, when things are going bad, there's going to be some good that's going to come from it. Didn't get that new high-speed gear we wanted? Good. Didn't get the road? Good. More time to get that. Oh, mission got canceled? Good. You can focus on the road. Didn't get funded. Didn't get the job you wanted. Got injured. Sprained my ankle. Got tapped out. Good. Got beat. Good. Unexpected problems. Good. We have the opportunity to figure out a solution. That's it. If things are going bad, you don't bum down and stall. Don't get frustrated. If you can say the word go, guess what? It means you're still alive. It means you're still breathing. If you're still breathing, you still got some fight left in you. So get up, dust off, reload, recalibrate, re-engage, and go out on the attack.
All right, so can you guys hear that all right? Okay, so I love that video because it's simple, and you can see just the perspective, right? When things are going wrong, just say good. And it's just, that's all you can do. And we can control how we respond. This is one thing I want you to remember, okay? The difference between responding and reacting. It's the last thing I'll leave you with, okay? We want to make sure that we are responding to things, not reacting. So think of a nuclear reactor, a nuclear reaction, explosion, right? That's something that a reactor, that's some people that react to things. It's uncontrolled, it's out of control. When we respond, think of like a first responder or an athletic trainer coming up to you when something's going wrong. They don't run up out of control. They're very controlled and they assess the situation and they make the right response. Your goal is to, whatever happens to you, is to settle yourself down, make the right response, and we're going to work on that stuff. So in the next few weeks, I'm looking forward to it. We're going to have all these things in place, and I think it's going to really be a helpful thing moving forward. So I want to thank you. Did pretty well here on time, and thanks again. And I look forward to seeing you guys on December 4th.
Yeah, hold up, guys. Now I'm just going to ask you guys, all of you, I know there's varying ages here, there's 13, there's 17-year-olds. Like, this stuff matters. And I know it may not click right off, but what I'm asking you to do is take a few pieces of what he's teaching and apply it. Apply it to everything that you do, because it's schoolwork too, right? Don't be lazy in school, right? Do the right thing. It's not that hard to put an effort into everything you do, and if you want to be successful, you want to be the best at what you do, you're gonna have to do it. So appreciate you guys coming out. We'll see you next time. All right? Thank you.